friends, Jay Siren here. Welcome to the third episode of Sizzlevision. This month, I traveled to New York City, a hub of the burlesque world and home to two gentlemen that are dedicated veterans of the industry, burlesque impresario Jonny Porkpie and renowned stage manager David Bishop. Each of these fellows have exciting stories to tell, over a decade of experience to draw upon, and a lot of sizzling projects coming up this year. Let's see what happened during my visit to Jonny Porkpie's Brooklyn apartment. Jonny, it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thanks for having me, Jay. Or rather, thank you for coming to my house.
I am in his house, that's correct. This is Sizzlevision in a very real way.
Oh, yes.
I think we should kick off this interview by talking about what drew you into the industry. And so let's start at the bottom and make our way to the top.
I really did start at the bottom. I was a burlesque boyfriend. My standard line is I followed my ex-wife into burlesque. She wasn't my ex-wife at the time, that would be creepy. So I started out, coming to support her at shows, and then was like a prop on stage but didn't take off my clothes. And, there's only so much time you can do that around Tigger without Tigger going, yeah, and? Just gonna be up there with your clothes on? And I started getting a little ashamed to be up there when everyone else had the, dare I say it, balls, or lack of balls, to take their clothes off, and there I was just, I can't take my shirt off because I'm in here. So I started taking my clothes off, and of course once you do that, you're done. You're done for life.
So you felt the sizzle in your heart, and you had to
I felt
let
it all
free.
over. I felt it pretty much, top to bottom, tip of the head to toes, yeah.
Okay, so you started at the bottom, but now you have a hand in so many pots. I feel like you should tell us in your own words what it is that you do and, what your contribution to this wonderful industry has ended up being.
I love the word impresario because it's sort of like burlesque, it's sort of an all-encompassing word. I produce, I perform, I host, I write scripts for the shows I produce, I design the posters, mostly because it's cheaper than hiring someone else to do it. I had a background in design and then realized, boy, no one can pay me enough to design for them. It's just too much work for too little pay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for myself, it's free. So wait a minute, I'm ripping myself off. Shit.
Well, I'm sure you can throw in a couple favors to make it worth your while.
Interesting. Now that you put it that way.
So basically what you're telling me is that it took some initiative, a lot of work, and not being afraid to take on any job in order to move your brand forward.
Yes. Calamity Chang and I, under the auspices of the New York School of Burlesque, are currently doing a program called Driver's Seat, which helps specifically performers. We're really interested in encouraging performer producers because we both feel that, being a performer, having that perspective is really, it brings, a certain type of respect to your productions. You have a tendency to, when you're one of the ones with the, let's just call them nads, to get up there on stage and take off your clothes, you've got a unique perspective. And I happen to think that perspective is incredibly valuable, and it's the perspective that enticed me into burlesque in the first place.
So it's clear that you fulfill many roles in the industry, teacher, host, producer, performer, all of the above. We know that you are an instructor. What upcoming projects do you have that you're producing and performing in?
Well, very interestingly, this year I'm celebrating my 10th year not necessarily in burlesque, but from the first time I appeared on a burlesque stage. This is my 10th year. I was around for, a little while before then. And my 40th birthday.
Ooh.
So the week of my 40th birthday, I have booked 4 or 5 different shows in New York just to appear in, and then I'm also producing 4 shows during the week of my birthday. The first one is the 1-year anniversary show for Driver's Seat. That's the new producer mentoring program. The second is my birthday show called Johnny Be Old, which is everyone in the show is doing performances to songs with the name Johnny in them. Which is, I think, an exercise in egotism that can only be tolerated once a decade. So this is pretty much your only chance. An incredible lineup. We've got Joe Boobs Weldon, Julie Adams Muse, Matt Frazier, Little Brooklyn, Tigger, Nikki Knickers, Bunny Buxom, Satiricin, and Hard Corey. So it's all good friends of mine. It's going to be a ridiculous night. I probably will be crying by the end of it just because he's so mean to me.
That sounds so goddamn sizzling.
It's
if you're in
gonna be,
the area, you gotta check it out.
Day after that is a rerun of a show I did with Iris Explosion in February called Deconstructing Burlesque, which is basically includes numbers that are meta numbers. Burlesque about burlesque. It's very high-minded and intellectual. And then we're all naked. So, and then following up on that is the relaunch of a 6-week trial period of a show I did for a bunch of months last year, Dead Sexy, which is a horror haunted house burlesque show at a haunted house in Times Square called Times Scare. So we'll be in the Kill Bar in the haunted house, which is a lovely restaurant decked out like a morgue. So that's running for 6 weeks. We'll see how it goes. If it does well, we'll continue that on a weekly basis.
Clearly, you've racked up a lot of experience over the past decade of, performing, producing, and doing all the things that you do. I'm curious to know, what is the strangest, craziest, or most ridiculous experience you've had while fulfilling any one of those roles?
I'm so glad I can tell you that and plug an upcoming show at the
Please
same
do!
time. In May, as part of Marx Fest, which is a New York City-wide celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Marx Brothers getting their nicknames, I'm reviving The Pinch Brothers in the Bawdy House, which is a rollicking comedy in the Marx Brothers vein. So it's going to be a fantastic show. Now, years ago we did the show at Collective Unconscious as part of our Pinch Bottom Subconscious series, where we did a new scripted, plotted show every month. It's fun. It's crazy.
Just load that plate up.
Just keep doing it. Just keep
stack
doing
it.
I mean, it's great. It's, you're in an intensely non-stop creative mode where you're always doing something, but it certainly burns you out quickly. And then this was, and this is a good example too of getting too relaxed as a producer, right? We had gathered everyone's music and burned it onto one CD for each act. So that this is back. See, CDs, kids, back in the old days, before digital music, you had to use these little round plastic discs with their music on them, and you would give a stack of them to the tech person, who would then shuffle through them and lose one and play the wrong one, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was back when I was a kid. So we'd been very good about it. We'd compiled these, because usually we just handed him a stack, and he was a wonderful guy, but not always the most sober in the booth. I don't recommend that, by the way. So we did the first act. It was going great. Hilarious, lots of fun, snappy, snappy, snappy. He comes back at intermission, and he says, "Hey, where's your backup CD?" Because while taking the CD out of the case, it had broken in half. And we said, "Backup CD?" Which is why nowadays I not only have a CD, but I also have a thumb drive with all my music on it. And I have it in a Dropbox folder, so if I need to access it from my phone, I can. So there we are. He's standing there with broken CDs in his hand. I'm standing there in full Groucho Marx regalia. We're talking, the full eyebrows, schlumpy suit, crumpled suit, the mustache, the glasses. Hey, how are you? And sort of going like this, And we look at each other, and we're talking about what should we do, what should we do, what should we do. And finally, I'm just like, because everyone else in the show, being the responsible performers they are, has brought their music on their own CDs. The only thing we're missing is our music as producers, because it was on the CD. So, I go out the door, I go to my car, which is parked outside, which is amazing because very few people have a car parked outside, but that was the best way of getting props back and forth. Again, keep in mind, in full Groucho regalia, drive as fast as I possibly can down through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, on the highway, off the highway, to my house, to the car, racing back, all the time thinking, if I get pulled over, there I am. How is this conversation going?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
In character, certainly, yeah.
I mean, it would have been a better story if I got pulled over, but I didn't. I made it from the theater to here and back in under 20 minutes, I think. Impressive. Which is amazing because it's a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
And so when I walk back into the theater, on stage is Little Brooklyn's father, who's telling a joke. Because what the cast has done is they have improvised basically another act, an additional act to the show. So Albert Cadaver is there. He managed just to borrow a deck of cards from an audience member.
Oh.
And yeah, just happened to have a deck of cards. He does a card trick, and you know, they keep going and going. I don't think I've ever gotten as good entrance applause as when I walked into that theater. But as it turned out later on, half the audience had no idea. You know, they had covered it so well that half the audience had no idea that there was anything wrong. They felt like it was a pretty long show at 3 acts long. I think we started at 10 and ended that one at 1 or 1:30 in the morning.
Oh dear.
Afterwards, someone said to me, that was a really good show. It was so long though. I didn't even know till I looked at my watch.
Well, it's the benefit of building a good team,
yes,
right?
Yes, that's why you want to have people you trust around you. You want to have people who are, you know, when you trip, they're going to roll with you and do the pratfall, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I haven't asked you is, where does your sizzle come from? Inside of you, what's Jonny Porkpie's sizzle all about?
I mean, I love being on stage. I was on stage prenatally. I started out in the womb on stage. So just the you know, when you're backstage with other people you know love doing it, you're just that energy of being backstage, that, oh my God, we get to do this again, and we're getting paid for it. You know, and there are days when I don't necessarily feel that. There are days when, you know, everyone has those days. But then I use a little trick I taught myself, which is, and especially when I do my Humpty fan dance number. But I'll go out there and I will look at the audience and I will just think to myself, you don't know it yet. You all want to fuck me. It works every time. You think that to yourself, and when you know that, when you just know it in your head, you are so excited to take off your clothes for those people, because at the end, by the end, they're going to want to fuck you.
That's an excellent mantra. That's right. I'm gonna carry that with me.
Maybe not literally, but you know, in a sort of metaphysical fucking sense.
Sure, it's
Yeah.
all very cerebral.
Yeah.
Well, let's cheers.
Cheers.
To the sizzle, to
To
New
the
York
sizzle.
City, and to being here together. Everybody, check out all of Jonny Porkpie's events, happenings, performances, and the like. He is outrageously entertaining and quite a personality. Who knows, maybe you'll make a new friend in him.
Thanks for having me, Jay. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Sizzlevision.
Sizzlevision.
Sizzle.
And now it's time for a 10-second dance party. Did you say a 10-second dance party?
10-second dance party.
The rest of my visit to the Big Apple brought me to the company of renowned stage manager and burlesque personality David Bishop. Let's see what David had to say as we sat down after a lovely dinner in Greenwich Village. I am in New York City with David Bishop. I met David through working for the Burlesque Hall of Fame. He is the stage manager of their annual Weekender, which is the largest fundraising event for the nonprofit every year. But that's pretty typical for you. You travel all around the world, stage managing big festivals and events. And I think the best way to start off this interview is for you to say in your own words, what is it that really means? As a stage manager, what do you do?
Okay, stage manager basically makes sure that everyone is talking to everyone else. So that the producer and the director and the lighting person and the sound person and the performers, and if you're working at a venue, whoever it is that's running the venue, the stage manager is basically in charge to make sure that everyone is on the same page and everyone is connecting, and that's in the beginning. And then when the actual event happens, you know, the stage manager needs to oversee everything. You know, what are the ushers doing? What is the house manager doing? Because that affects when the show can begin. And you know, if people can't find their seats, or if the people that have been invited by the producer can't get in the building, or if security is inspecting everyone's bag or whatever, then the show is obviously going to start late. And once the show begins, the stage manager's job is to make sure that the show runs on time, and that all of the cues, that is the lights and the sound cues, happen at the right time, and that all the entrances and exits happen at the right time. And that if there's a host, the host has all the information that they need. For example, make sure that the sponsors are talked about on stage. Make sure that if there's awards or if there's anything, if there's an after party or anything like that, remind the host, to say that or whatever. Just basically stay on top of everything. And if anything goes wrong, it's your fault.
Yeah, so the term manager is very serious. You're a master communicator, a master coordinator, and highly organized, which is something, as we all know, is incredibly necessary to the smooth execution of any sizzling event. As I mentioned in the beginning, this has taken you literally around the world and back. I'm interested to know how you were drawn into the world of burlesque and what inspired you to immerse yourself in the industry.
I was drawn into burlesque completely by accident. I was stage managing a show at a tiny little theater in the East Village, and we were the 8 o'clock show, and it was either the 10 o'clock or the 11 o'clock show was the Baba Rum Rum, which was started by Kate Valentine. And and I knew Julie Atlas Muse because we went to college together, and she was in that show. Mm-hmm. And so we had to change our set so that they could do their show, because the set for that piece was basically a junkyard plus a burned out building that had been bombed. So there was just debris and junk and just ridiculous stuff everywhere. So that had to be cleared off each night. And originally we were like, we hate these people. But then because the set designer didn't know that there was going to be another show coming in.
Right.
So you had like oxygen tanks and like cinder blocks that had been smashed into pieces and just like garbage, and barrels and just all sorts of weird stuff. But yeah, so Kate was doing this show. Mm-hmm. And the next show that they did in that same space, they needed a dancer for, basically just a male body who could move to music. And I was like, I can move to music. And so I was involved in that show. I played a Siamese twin who had been hacked apart at birth, grew up gay, and fell in love with his brother, not realizing that they were Siamese twins who'd been separated at birth. It was called Carney Town. It's a great story.
That's a mouthful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then their next show that they did, they needed a substitute stage manager, and so I was like, I can do that because I've been stage managing before. Mm-hmm. And then I did their follow spot, and I substitute stage managed, and then through people that I met at the Baba Rum Rum, people were like, oh, I'm going to do this solo show, like I'm going to do the Murray Hill show, or I'm the World Famous Bob, and I'm going to do a show, or we're going to be the Glamazons, and we're going to do a show. There was a big monthly show called Daddy's Chicken, and so they did a whole bunch of monthly shows, and so I just kept meeting people, it was just sort of spiral. Mm-hmm. Then suddenly I was in Las Vegas. Yeah. So, and then from there, in 2011, I was just like, oh, I want to do this in other places like Atlanta or Minneapolis or whatever, and so I contacted people there, and then, cut to being in Japan or in, Toronto or Ireland or whatever, so just snowball effect.
Okay, so that's a wonderful journey, and you said that you had a little foray onto stage. I happen to know that you do have a stage personality as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, I'm the Bishop of Burlesque. My last name is Bishop, mm-hmm. And I was in Toronto with Foxy Tan, and she said, you know what? You're the Bishop of Burlesque. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And I was like, why didn't I think of that in the 10 years I've been doing burlesque?
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, okay. She's like, I'm going to make you a costume. And I was like, that's great, Foxy Tan. You make me a costume. You don't know how many times people have been like, I'm going to make you a costume. But she did. That was July, and that January, she's like, here's your costume. And it was the costume that I still wear today. And so I go and I give a burlesque blessing, and I introduce shows, and we have the horizontal hosanna, which is the little shimmy, and then we have the passing the posterior, so you just pass your posterior, and kissing the rings. I mean, it's just like little bits that you can do with the character. But yeah, he's a fun little character. He's very sober and serene.
Sure.
But a little naughty as well. It is burlesque.
Of course. What's burlesque without some good, clean, dirty fun? Now, you having experienced both backstage and on stage, and at such a high level as far as the management and execution of an event goes, what kind of advice would you give to performers to literally be the best performers that they can be, to work well with their crew and help facilitate that smooth flow overall of an event, to help make it sizzling?
I would say the number one thing is to be kind and compassionate, and to realize that you're not the only person performing, and you're not the only person in the universe. To be confident, also to know your shit. You know, come prepared, come ready to work, be well rehearsed. You know, expect to work. Don't expect to be catered to or pampered. You know, and you know, be nice to people, and be polite. Say please and thank you. Smile. Be nice to other people in the dressing room. You know, be aware of the time. Don't have someone come and run to find you. You know, be ready to go on when it's time to go on. You know, if you have a question, ask the question. If you need to know, do I have 10 minutes? Do I have 20 minutes? If someone hasn't told you, ask those questions so that you are ready to go when it's your chance to go. And if it's not your turn to go, get out of the way. You know, I mean, basic common sense that maybe is not so common. But,
that's a great way to put it, actually.
You know, but just, you know, be aware that there's a show going on and you're a very important and wonderful part of that show, but when you're not on stage, the rest of the show has to happen, so make sure that you're somewhere where the show can go on when it's not your turn, if that makes any sense.
It makes complete sense. Be respectful, have awareness, love your craft, love yourself, have skills and respect the people around you. That sounds like a wonderful nutshell for any performer to take to heart.
And
delivered by a true professional himself.
And bring your music on as many different forms as you can. Bring a CD, bring an iPod, bring a little flash drive, have your laptop, you know, whatever, because you never know what's going to work with the system or the venue that you're at.
Always bring a backup, or 2 or 3 or 4. That's wonderful.
Definitely. And, you know, always walk on the stage in the shoes you're going to perform in. I cannot say that enough.
Write that down right now. Commit it to memory. Make a note on your cell phone.
Do not rehearse on the stage in your sneakers or the shoes you're not going to wear, because the shoes that you are going to wear in your act might actually be slippery or might react to the surface differently, and then you'll fall.
Common sense that's not so common. A lot of it bred of experience, but also a lot from observance and asking the right questions from people that are honest contributors to the industry. You can't ask a bad question if it's an honest question, and it's going to help everyone for you to be knowledgeable. All right. So before I let you go, I want to ask you one final question. We know that you're all over the world all the time. You're a very busy man. What's up for you this year? What do you have going on next?
Okay, well next I'm going to Atlanta for the Southern Fried Burlesque Festival. After that, I will be in Vancouver for the Vancouver International Burlesque Festival. After that, I'll hopefully be in Hawaii. And then when I come back from there, it's the usual New Orleans Burlesque Festival, New York Burlesque Festival, BurleyCon. I'm sure I'm forgetting one, but...
Well, it's a heavy schedule, and I certainly appreciate your time. I think this has been a wonderful interview, just packed full of great advice. And folks, remember, when you are working at a show, make sure to smile and greet your stage manager, because they're the people literally holding the fabric and weight of the show schedule together from behind the scenes, and they deserve the props. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
I think it's time to go enjoy New York.
I agree, let's go.
All right. Both Jonny and David brought up some incredibly useful points during our interviews, and are always a pleasure to catch up with. To quote the magnificent Miss Kitten DeVille, you should never be stingy with knowledge, and both of these guys have it in droves to share. Check out Jonny Porkpie and David Bishop online and in social media to learn more about their upcoming shows and sizzling projects. Thank you for joining me for the 3rd episode of Sizzlevision. I'll see you again next month as I head back to Oakland for the infamous Tourette's Without Regrets. Sizzle on.